Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello, my name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of Robotics and Automation News.com. In this webcast, I speak to Kevin Bennett, one of the founders and currently the CTO of KBMax, which is what is known as a CPQ platform. CPQ stands for Configure, Price, Quote. And through the KBMax platform, engineering designers can upload CAD models of their machine or whatever they've designed, and then complete the process of making it a reality. The process also has many of the elements of mass customization, as you will hear from the interview.
So I'm Kevin Bennett. I'm the CTO of KBMax, and KBMax is a software company, and we do CPQ software. CPQ stands for Configure, Price, Quote. So it's really software that's built for companies that sell configurable products or services, right? So customizable products. And we at KBMax, we tend to focus on manufacturing companies, product companies, most of all. And so some of the benefits of CPQ are really that you're letting the user, whether the user be a direct customer of the manufacturer, a salesperson, a distributor, they are selecting options about the product that they want. And the way CPQ helps this is that it automates all the pricing for you, that runs all the pricing algorithms. It automates the building of proposal documents. We at KBMax, we even do 3D visualization of what the product's going to look like for products that make sense for that. We also do engineering automation. So for certain products where they actually have to be engineered to go build this custom product because the company's never built it before, we can actually automate the generation of the CAD models and drawings as part of that process. So it's really, CPQ is really this tool that helps out your sales when you sell custom products, but also ends up automating a lot of the back end challenges with selling custom products. So bottom line is really, it allows companies to sell custom products like they were standard products. It eases the pain of doing that.
When did you start? When was the company established? I noticed that you have a number of quite impressive, I suppose, customers there. You've got their logos on the website, GE Healthcare being one of them.
Yep.
What kind of things since you started, maybe perhaps describe a trend since you started to now? What kind of customers have you had, and what kind of things have they been using your platform for? Is it component design, complete product design? What kind of work do they do with your platform?
Right. A lot of the times, as far as industrial products, it ends up being systems, right? Because a lot of times systems are the most configurable of anything, and they're the most complex. So there's kind of the biggest benefits are kind of reaped the more complex the product is, because the tougher it is for the company to deal with selling it and designing it and building it. And so, you know, the trends we're seeing really are that I think if you implemented something like KBMax 10 years ago, it was a definite huge competitive advantage, and there's huge value to CPQ software. The trend I'm seeing is that you know, and you can look at those logos on our website. It's quickly going from a competitive advantage to something these companies need to have a sense of urgency about, because this is happening. It's becoming mainstream. The biggest brands in the world are doing this. if you're not doing this, you're going to get left behind. You're not going to be as efficient. You're going to be responding. Your response to customers is going to be slower. You're going to have more mistakes in the custom products that you're producing and quoting. So it's really, I want to impress that upon people that listen to this, is that you need to have a sense of urgency if you haven't thought about this and you're a company that sells configurable products.
Now, what was the, I mean, this is obviously a new way of doing things. What was the old way, and what kind of things is it replacing or maybe adding to, or helping companies do?
Right. So the old way is it's really a mess. It's a mess of Excel spreadsheets and manual processes and people emailing things back and forth. It's really hard. What we see usually when we go into companies is that they've built up a very elaborate manual process around how to deal with the challenges of building custom products, and there are challenges there. You've got to be responsive. You're constantly building things that you've never built before, and that you've got to stock things on the shelves that you might need or not need. It kind of travels through the whole sales, procurement, and uh, design departments. It kind of snakes through all of that. It's all kind of connected. And so, generally, we've seen a lot of custom solutions that companies have built too, where they'll hire developers to build them a custom configurators to kind of solve this problem. A lot of times that just ends up untenable because it's not something that they can maintain over time. Eventually, the developer leaves. They have no one that understands how to deal with it anymore. They can't add new rules. The technology itself gets kind of left behind in this fast moving world of software. So there's a lot of things we see when we first go into a company.
Yeah, I think I can think of something perhaps similar. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'll get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to clarify something that I wanted to understand the business a bit better. So
Yep.
it says here on your website, integrations, out of the box integrations for 3D visualization, CAD automation. It isn't a design platform, is it? It's one where you can upload your the 3D design that you've got either as some sort of CAD file.
That's right. Yeah, we don't certainly we don't try to replace what the engineering departments at these companies are already doing. We try to work right alongside it, right? So the assets that KBMax will utilize to automate a lot of the 3D and the CAD and the drawings is the assets that the companies already has, right? They already have CAD files. What KBMax does is make those dynamic, right? So it can take those CAD files and modify them on the fly into what the customer just asked for. And that's really the power of the platform. And it's really kind of, you can look at it as kind of taking all these different assets together, taking all of your product data, and giving you an easy way to codify what your product rules are, right? And that's really the power of the configurator is in those rules. It gives you a formal and easy way to define those rules about how your product is configured. And by doing so, you get all these other benefits. You can automate all of the proposals and the CAD documents and drawings and everything else. But the power is in the rules.
So a typical kind of situation would be somebody's developer building a machine perhaps for a customer, and they could be communicating with the customer or customers about particular customizations for each one of them. And as you mentioned on your website, is a Salesforce. It can be connected to Salesforce, and that part of it is taken care of as well. From the point of design to sale, it's something, you know, your platform kind of connects all the way all through to the end customer, including the modifications along the way. Have I got that right?
Yeah, you have, and really, you know, a good example of what we're talking about is one of our customers, TUFF Shed, because it's everybody understands sheds. They're easy to understand. TUFF Shed's a big name in the U.S. So the way TUFF Shed works, they have many different sales channels, right? They have direct sales where their salespeople are working with customers to design the shed that they want. They also have a huge distribution channel through Home Depot, and the use case there is people are going into Home Depot and saying, "I want a shed." The Home Depot associate is sitting down with them and configuring the shed that they want. And the third use case that TUFF Shed has is really direct. It's straight retail off their website, e-commerce, direct to the customer. So they have these different use cases, and the KBMax software is able to handle all of those, right? So for the internal sales, you know, we have a Salesforce integration. So the sales, and they're a great partner of ours. The salespeople log into their CRM like they normally would. KBMax is part of the whole experience there. They can configure their sheds. It's perfectly integrated with everything. If you're at Home Depot has their own internal website for their own associates. There they can use their KBMax TUFF Shed configurator as well. And it also is directly on their retail site where customers can go. You could go on right now and go to tuffshed.com and configure your shed. And you'll be getting all of the rules of the configurator, all of the options that are available. We're showing you in 3D what the sheds that you're configuring is looking like. It's giving you the exact price you're going to get every step along the way based on the options you've selected. Now in the background, the part that the users don't see is that it's also spitting out the full manufacturing bill of materials. It's spitting out the drawings that TUFF Shed is going to need on their shop floor to actually build that shed. So when they actually get the order for it, those drawings are sitting there ready to go. Goes straight to the shop floor with the drawings. And in addition to that, you know, another part you might be interested in, Abdul, is that it allows for efficiency gains as far as when you get into the engineering part as well. So one example I like to share is that on the floors of these sheds, right, they're always, you know, they're always cutting these large pieces of wood for the floors and kind of connecting them together in different ways to cover it. But through the use of the configurator, they're actually able to more efficiently use the scrap that's coming from those cuts and reuse them on other sheds that are being designed. And just from that, they're saving a tremendous amount of money. I mean, it's a kind of an add-on thing there, but also another benefit of the software. So I think that's a good story of the whole use case end to end, right? And the one thing to really keep in mind, a lot of these manufacturing companies, especially that sell configurable products, the design really partially comes into play in the sales process. A lot of times you can't even quote these really configurable products until they've been designed, until you have a bill of materials that you can go price out. And a lot of times the customer's not going to buy it without seeing a drawing that they can sign off on saying, yes, that's actually what I want. So there's a component of the engineering and design that comes into play all the way up front in the sales process. So it's not just even after the order where the engineering comes into play. It's even before.
In that example you gave, the TUFF Sheds one, Yeah, we're talking about ready-made parts or modular sort of design where it's fairly straightforward in terms of customization. How, you know, it could be different sizes and various other features that an individual customer wants. Uh, how complex can it get?
It's definitely not all. You know, the Lego brick analogy is what we would call assembled order, right? It's a bunch of known components that you're kind of putting together in different ways, and certainly we have a lot of customers doing that. Uh, but there's also configure to order, which is really you know, a subset of options, but all the kind of, you know, in configure to order, all the iterations are kind of known up front, right? And then there's what we call engineer to order, and I think that's really what you're asking about there. An engineer to order is basically that's, you know, there's a good likelihood that every time you sit down to configure one of these, it's going to be something you've never built before, right? It's there's a lot of complex interdependencies and relationships between the different items in the system, and certainly KBMax is built to handle those. So we go into engineer to order uh, better than any other CPQ company that's out there, really. That's actually where we got started. The term, what you're kind of driving at, is called knowledge-based engineering, and that's where the KB and KBMax actually comes from, is that term. So that's kind of our background, is those complex engineering problems. So it's certainly possible. You've just, the only thing you've got to consider there is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Can these things be automated? Absolutely. Is it? Are you going to get enough value out of automating that for what you're going to put into it? So, you know, if you're solving the really, really complex problems, it's going to take quite a bit to set that up. Is that going to be worth it? Are you going to get enough value out of that in the end? So, you know, there's a lot of questions that come into that. What's the volume of the products that you're configuring? How much time is being spent on it? How much value does it bring the company if you can reduce the cycle time of that and increase your hit rates? Is that value more than offset the cost of the tool? And in most cases, the answer is a resounding yes. I mean, these tools in CPQ, when properly implemented, have more value than, at least in my experience in enterprise software, they have more value than I've seen any other tools have in this space. I mean, it's amazing what can be done with it. If you're talking about, if your company sells complex products and your cycle time of just even getting back to the customer is on the order of weeks, which is very common to see, where you get a request for a quote and it's taking you weeks to respond. Um, Even if most of that time sitting on a desk somewhere, it's taking you weeks to get back to them. CPQ can reduce that to minutes, and that's not a made up number. That's just the reality. When it's properly implemented, you can get those cycle times down to almost nothing. You're way more responsive to your customers, and you get all these efficiency gains and improved hit rates to boot. So I think it's well proven out at this point, the value that it provides. But yeah, it's you can go from the very simple to the very complex.
I just noticed that you have been in business 10 years, got 2 million users, 5 million products configured. That's a phenomenal, to me, that sounds like a phenomenal, you know, phenomenally successful business. But can you give me an overview of the business or a sector as a whole?
It very much sits alongside of other enterprise software markets. So if you're looking at ERP software, like Oracle, SAP, if you're looking at CRM software like Salesforce, it very much ties in with that space pretty heavily. So that's kind of where it sits. And as far as the market's concerned, 10 years ago when we started, I mean, it's very much was in its visionary stage, right? If you've seen the charts of kind of where a market goes over time, it was definitely in its infancy, 10 or 15 years ago. As time has gone on, though, I think at the moment we're really in the hyper growth phase. I mean, it's it's consistent growth rates every year for the CPQ market. More and more companies are aware of it. Um, a lot of the big brands are either doing it or in the process of doing it. And so it's something that's happening now. And I think there's still a long ways to go. There's still a lot of the market to be penetrated. It's a market that Gartner tracks. So if you're interested in details about the size of the market and the key players and how all that works, Gartner is certainly a good resource for that.
Software is becoming so important to manufacturing in all sorts of ways, and this is a very good example because I've heard of this term, mass customization, and this idea of people working fairly directly with customers. Would it be accurate to say this is a kind of mass customization
That's exactly
to your platform?
Exactly what it is. Right. Yeah. The exact term is mass customization. So if you, and that term's been around for a long time. CPQ is just, I think with software, enterprise software, at some point you got to get a three-letter name. But the term that's been around for a long time is mass customization, and that's exactly what this is. And you kind of alluded to it there in your question, but it's really, in my mind, it's a really big part of a lot of things that are converging right now. So, and there's different terms being tossed around to describe what's going on, but you hear the term digital transformation, and that's a bigger term. A mass customization is absolutely a part of that movement, and it's one of the higher value parts that you could focus on in that movement if you're a company that sells configurable products or services. So there's a term, digital transformation. You've heard the fourth industrial revolution, that term, and you asked about B2B and B2C. One of my favorite terms, actually, the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, I believe, coined this term, but it's B2B2C, right? And I think that perfectly describes at least what we focus on at KBMax. But there are, like I said, there are different CPQ companies that cover the whole spectrum. But we try, certainly a lot of our customers are B2B, right? They're selling industrial products to other manufacturers that are using those in different ways. The term B2B2C is really about how are you going to enable the customer at the end, right? And I think that's what we've heavily focused on the last few years. And it's definitely a part of this whole movement that's going on. The example I gave earlier with TUFF, right? A lot of times in the past, these configurators and these tools, these enterprise tools, they're kind of kept in a dark corner of the closet, right? It's this kind of secret thing that you're using internally. It's never looked good enough or been performant enough or shiny enough to really put a tool like that in front of your customers. But that's all changing now with what we're doing, and we're building the tools so that they look good enough. We're trying to give a consumer-like experience, even if you're a B2B customer. That's what everybody expects now. They in their consumer lives, everybody's using all this great software online like Amazon. They expect the same thing when they go to buy industrial products now, and they should. And so we're able to provide that experience now, right? Where the system is highly performant, it looks good. We give fancy visualization as part of the tool. These are things that manufacturers are proud to put on their website, and enabling the end customer wherever they are to be able to have direct access to the tool. It just opens up a whole new sales channel that these companies never had before, and it's a way to interact and to bond with your customer, to give them an experience with your brand that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have. And so some of this kind of leaks into the marketing arena as well. So it's an interesting movement that's going on, and CPQ is definitely one of the more value-driven propositions in that movement, in my mind.
If somebody wants to build a machine, they've got their design, they've uploaded it, and started working with you, how does the pricing and quote work? Who provides the quote? Do you go to other companies and find out how much is this component going to cost, and then pass on that information to the how does that part of it, the other parts of it, work?
Right. So, well, it's through the rules, really. So here's the thing. We're not focused on problems that people don't already know how to solve, right? These companies that are selling customizable products, they know how to solve these problems. Really, the trick is giving them a platform to automate the solving of that. So it really depends on the product. I mean, if you're looking at different systems, like in healthcare, our customers there, a lot of times, you end up building these systems with a bunch of discrete components, and so the pricing for them will be an algorithm where it'll figure out what all of those piece parts are, and it'll connect to their other systems where the pricing that they know they're paying for those components, it lives. And some of the pricing might be components that they're making in house that have different algorithms for how it's priced out, right? It might go to even the time it takes, the labor, the material costs. All those things can kind of be rolled into the algorithm, and so they know how to price these things out. What we deliver is a platform for them to build those rules in our system, that's really easy to use. And so you asked about our rule writer. Really, it's one of the biggest strengths of our platform, I believe. And there's a lot of different ways to do this if you look throughout the industry. Now, our way of doing it, we call it KBMax Snap. It's a visual rule language. So you're kind of dragging and dropping different blocks and snapping them together to build up your logic. And it really, the genesis of this kind of language is it's really got an exciting history. So it was first developed by MIT maybe about 15 years ago or so. And it still exists out there. It's called MIT Scratch. And so it was originally, this concept of the block languages was designed to teach children, high school students, the basic tenets of how to put together logic for programming. So it's kind of this easy way to get into it and start building your own rules and logic about something. And so with MIT Scratch, kids are using it, and they're building animations of different things. Now, what we've done is taken the concept of the block language, and we've made it a real Turing complete industrial strength language, right? So it has all the things that you're going to need, it has all the flexibility that you're going to need to build your product rules. But at the same time, it holds that core of it, that it's really easy to get started. People love it. People have never programmed before, just they gravitate towards it so quickly. They're able to start writing the rules so quickly. And at the same time, as they use the tool more and get more advanced, it kind of opens up for them, so they're not being limited by it as they go on their journey with the tool. So it's been a huge success for us. We originally were doing text-based rule language syntax, and that has its plus and minuses. About 5 years ago, we released this, and it's been a huge success for us. And I think as time goes on, you're gonna be seeing these kind of languages pop up almost everywhere.
Right, and as I say, you've been tremendously successful so far, and you say you're in a growth phase. What does the next year or two, or maybe beyond, hold for you?
Well, I think a bit of both. I'm a very forward-looking guy, so I'm always working on the next thing. Some of which I can't talk about, but of course we never stop innovating. But really, the main opportunity here is the one we've already talked about. There's tremendous value to this software, and you're in a market that's only maybe 20% penetrated. So there's a long ways to go just for getting this kind of technology in the hands of the companies that need it the most. So really, as a company, that's going to be our focus over the next couple of years. Some of the things I've been talking about are already really high on the innovation chart as far as providing direct access to your customers and things. I mean, these are things that not many companies are out there doing. So we're already kind of at the bleeding edge. We'll be staying at the bleeding edge, but the biggest opportunity really isn't some far off concept. It's here and now, and I think the companies that need the tool the most are the ones that should be looking into it.
There's a huge amount of potential. I mean, where do you think there's more to be done to automate or streamline that theoretical sort of day when people can do that, order a very highly customized product for themselves?
Right. The software is there. Some of the things I'm really excited about are additive manufacturing. I mean, as you get into technologies like 3D printing, they're not quite there yet for manufacturers, I understand. But if you kind of take a step back and look at what is there, so you have CAD CAM type manufacturing. You have a lot of different tooling and machines on the manufacturing floor that can be automated, right? They all have some way to pass in their codes, instructions to automate whatever that is. And a lot of our customers are already doing parts of that, right? So they'll send they'll have the tool output CNC instructions. Some of our customers have the tool spitting out instructions for their laser cutting machines. They have our tool spitting out graphics for their printing. If they're making large signs and things like that. So there's already ways that our customers are doing that. And certainly, if you really kind of focus on that part, and focus on the efficiency of the manufacturing process, and you have a tool like this in place, the sky's the limit, really. You really can automate a lot or most of that process. There are still some challenges left for manufacturers that make custom products, obviously. The whole supply chain is probably the biggest, right? You're always constantly gotta be forecasting and kind of guessing as to what materials you're going to need to satisfy the requests coming in, because they're different. You don't really know, so you've got to keep the shelves stocked. You've got to keep kind of supply lines open to different suppliers and be able to react fast. So there's challenges left, but the tool can actually help with that too. It can help you forecast what you might need. You can see trends over time of what people have ordered, selections that they've made. So I think there are ways to really go all the way with that. It's just up to the manufacturer themselves and how far they want to go.
Yeah, it's a very interesting area, also because I mean, at the moment, big companies mass manufacture items, and that's what enables them to sell things very cheaply. So washing machines you can get for a couple of hundred, £200-300 in the UK, and probably equivalent price in the US. But I suppose this kind of customization, offering this kind of customization, will enable those companies to add a layer or tier of a higher price point. If you're asking for a level of customization which requires more work and whatever, then obviously you're going to ask for more money, and that's something that they're probably not able to offer now, because that level of mass customization and the software and all the things we're talking about aren't quite, they might actually be in place. The components are all there. It hasn't all come together, and it's not a culture yet. I don't know if you want to correct me on that, but it's not something that's happened already.
Well, it's getting there. Like I said, I think it's happening as we speak. But there are parts of it coming together for sure, and there are it's not the best example because they're not industrial. But if you look at Nike, for example, they've been discovering exactly what you're talking about the last few years, where they released a platform called Nike ID, which allows you to customize their shoes. So it's kind of, yes, you can go buy their stock models, but if you want to customize them, change the colors, put have your name stitched in it, things like that, you can do that now, and you can order those, and they're asking for a higher price point for those, and they're doing very well with that. That's been a hugely successful venture for them. So I think they're finding what companies like us already know, is that this is what consumers want. They want to they want custom products. They're willing to pay more for them. Their experience with your brand is much deeper and more positive when they're able to do that. So it's, price is a part of it, and the goal of these tools really to take everything I've said and simplify as much as possible. The goal of CPQ is to allow companies to make custom products to be able to sell and design those custom products and make it as easy as selling and designing standard products. So will it end up as cheap as a mass-produced item? Likely not. But we're getting rid of as many of the challenges along the way to doing so that we can, so that you're able to run your company in much the same way without any of those challenges.
Okay, thank you very much.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.